Welcome to Despicable Maine Deep Dive. Today, something pretty incredible has happened. You really need to hold on to your hats for this one, folks, because, well, after decades of whispers, speculation, the government has officially confirmed it. UFOs and exobiological organisms, EBOs, they're real.
It's
Yeah.
it's significant, not just the admission, but the actual weight of an official acknowledgement after all this time. We are plunging straight into the claims of this former intelligence official, focusing specifically on that News Nation interview he did,
Uh-huh.
and some really huge allegations about recovered non-human craft.
Yeah, our mission today is really to unpack what Grush actually presented, especially his claims, his core claims about the U.S. government having vehicles of NHI origin, non-human intelligence, and also that really fascinating, maybe slightly head-spinning idea that these things, these craft, these entities, they might come from higher dimensions.
Higher dimensions.
Right. We want to explore what he's saying, the substance of it, and, why it could fundamentally challenge how you think about reality.
Okay, so for anyone maybe just catching up, David Grush, he's not just some random guy off the street, right?
Not at all, yeah.
This is someone with a pretty serious intelligence background. He co-led the UAP portfolio for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency.
NGA, yeah. He was trusted. High-level secrets.
He was definitely in the know. But he claims he was shut out, denied access to some kind of broad crash retrieval program.
Exactly. Imagine being, I don't know, the head baker, but suddenly the flour silo is off limits. Makes no sense, right? If the program exists as he claims.
Right. And his central assertion is, well, it's pretty extraordinary. He's saying the U.S. government has recovered, and I quote, non-human origin technical vehicles.
Basically, spacecraft that aren't ours.
And on top of that, he alleges this sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting us, the American public, to keep it all hidden.
A deliberate cover-up, according to him.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get into the details.
Okay, let's start with these craft he talks about, the recovered ones. He calls them exotic, says they have very specific properties. What really jumped out at me was this talk about strange arrangements of heavy atomic metals.
Yeah, that's key. He mentions extremely strange, heavy atomic metal arrangements that we don't understand.
Yeah.
Stuff high up on the periodic table, the really heavy elements.
It's not just like finding an aluminum can somewhere.
Definitely not. He implies these aren't alloys we know how to make, maybe formed under conditions we can't replicate or don't even understand. It pushes against, our current understanding of material science, maybe even physics.
And he connects this to unusual isotopic ratios.
Right. Isotopes are like different flavors of the same element, slightly different weights.
Like atomic fingerprints?
Kind of, yeah. And he argues these weird ratios, plus the strange metal structures, are big clues. Indicators that these craft are, in his words, not of this earth.
And sophisticatedly engineered. Certainly not by humans.
It's like finding, I don't know, a perfectly functional smartphone in an Egyptian tomb. Something's up.
Good analogy, yeah.
And he also talks about the emergent properties of this very strange mix of elements.
Emergent properties, meaning
Properties that kind of pop up from the combination. Stuff you wouldn't predict just by looking at the individual ingredients. Think like sodium and chlorine separately are dangerous, right? But together they make table salt. Totally different.
Yeah.
Now imagine that, but with unknown exotic elements creating completely unknown effects. We just don't know what this stuff can do.
And Grush seems pretty frustrated that we, the public, aren't benefiting from studying this stuff. He mentions potential breakthroughs, propulsion, energy, new materials.
Right. He seems genuinely bothered by the idea that potentially world-changing technology is just sitting somewhere, locked away.
Like having the cure for the common cold, but keeping it secret just because it feels wrong, if true.
It definitely raises huge ethical questions about transparency and, well, who gets access to potentially revolutionary knowledge.
Okay, let's shift gears to the really weird part. Higher dimensions.
Yeah, this is where it gets pretty theoretical.
Grush tends to say non-human intelligence, NHI, instead of just aliens.
He says. And it seems quite deliberate. He says he doesn't want to presume they're just, ET from another star system.
Because we don't know their origin.
Exactly. He says we can't pinpoint a certain location. So he floats this other possibility, grounded in physics actually, that NHI might come from a different physical dimension.
Okay, brain's starting to ache already. He talks about this like it's plausible physics.
He refers to it as a well-established fact that most likely there are physical additional spatial dimensions. Now, well established might be strong for some physicists, but the idea certainly exists in theoretical physics. String theory, M theory, they explore this.
So beyond our normal length, width, height, there could be more that we just can't see.
That's the concept. Imagine being a 2D character on a sheet of paper. You wouldn't understand a 3D sphere passing through your world, right? You'd only see a 2D circle growing and shrinking.
Okay.
We might be like that 2D character, living in our 3D slice of a higher dimensional reality, and NHI might operate in those extra dimensions.
He mentions 4 or 5 dimensions,
Mm.
where time itself could be like a physical dimension.
Yeah, that's a key part of the theoretical framework he touches on. If time is a dimension, they can navigate like we navigate space.
Then they could potentially move across what we perceive as a linear flow, like time travel, or something like it.
It's hard to wrap our heads around, for sure. It challenges our basic experience of reality, but it opens up theoretical ways to explain things that seem impossible in our 3D plus linear time view.
But he's clear, this is a theory, right? He's not saying this is definitely how it is.
Absolutely. He explicitly says, this is a theory here. I'm not saying this is 100% the case. He seems very sure about the craft and the intelligence being real, the origin. That's where he offers this dimensional idea as one possibility.
But the implication is huge if they're potentially from another dimension.
Then they might not be coming from light years away in starships.
They could be, as he puts it, coming from a higher dimensional physical space that might be collocated.
Collocated, meaning?
Right here, essentially. Just sort of overlaid or intersecting with our reality in a way we don't perceive.
That is a mind bender. Forget looking up at the stars. Maybe we should be looking sideways into dimensions.
It completely reframes the question, doesn't it?
It really does. It forces a rethink of what here even means and what other forms of intelligence might be possible.
Okay, what about Grush himself? His credibility. News Nation apparently vetted his credentials.
Yes. They confirmed his resume, his service history. It checks out. He held the positions he claims he held.
And he frames himself as a patriot, right? Doing this out of duty.
That's his stated motivation, bringing the truth to power. And interestingly, he says he wasn't always a believer in this stuff. He started out skeptical.
That non-believer, yeah.
He claims he reached his conclusions methodically, through interviews, looking at documents, photos, evidence given to him by other senior intel people, current and former.
So not just based on rumors.
He presents it as an investigation based on testimony and data he was given access to or told about by credible sources within the system.
And then there's the whistleblower complaint he filed with the Intelligence Committee Inspector General.
Right. And the IG reportedly found his complaint urgent and credible.
Which is significant. It doesn't prove his claims are true,
But it means the IG, who has the authority to look into these things, found his report plausible enough and serious enough to warrant official attention. It passed an initial sniff test, a serious one.
And Grush insists he's not after fame or money.
He denies it, says it's about a sense of service, avoiding regret later for not speaking out against what he sees as major wrongdoing.
Which, sounds like a lot of whistleblowers, whatever the subject is. They often risk quite a bit.
They do. Careers, reputations, sometimes more. It suggests the motivations might be complex, but often rooted in conviction rather than just personal gain.
Okay, let's talk about the alleged cover-up, the spy novel part.
Right, the disinformation.
Grush claims there's a, quote, sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, calls it extremely unethical and immoral.
He's basically saying the government's official line for decades, "We are indeed alone," is a lie. A deliberate one.
And he claims the official UAP task force, the group's supposed to be looking into this,
Was refused access to this crash retrieval program he talks about.
That's like asking the fire department to investigate arson, but not letting them into the burned building.
It suggests, if true, an internal wall. A program hidden even from those officially tasked with UAP investigation. Very compartmentalized.
He even points fingers at historical cases, like Roswell, saying the Air Force essentially concocted stories to mislead everyone.
He's alleging a long history, decades of active deception, not just passive secrecy, but actively putting out false narratives.
Why, though? What's the motive for such intense long-term secrecy, according to him?
He suggests it's about power, maintaining feudalistic dominance, he calls it, and controlling what he terms asymmetric technology. Tech so advanced it would totally upend the global power balance if it got out.
So fear of losing control. fear of the unknown consequences.
That seems to be his interpretation, keeping this technology, this knowledge, tightly controlled by a very small group for reasons of power and perhaps fear of societal disruption. This happen. You really need to hold on to your hats for this one, folks, because, well, after decades of whispers, speculation, the government has officially confirmed it. UFOs and exobiological organisms, EBOs, they're real.
It's
Yeah.
it's significant, not just the admission, but the actual weight of an official acknowledgement after all this time.
Yeah.
It definitely moves us beyond just blurry photos and stories.
Yeah, into documented reality, a reality that, well, it seems like it was deliberately hidden.
By all accounts, yes. Deliberately concealed.
And concealed is, putting it mildly, we're talking about a truth potentially kept from the public for,
Right.
for generations. It just begs the question, why now? And, I mean, what does this actually mean for all of us? Dissect this bombshell revelation. We'll use direct evidence insights.
We do have a substantial amount of material, excerpts from the congressional hearing, firsthand accounts, even some details about these entities themselves.
Whoa, okay.
So the aim is to give you the essential information, try to cut through any, remaining fog or misinformation.
Okay, think of it like this. Imagine you've suspected for years that your neighbor has, I don't know, a pet unicorn in their garage.
Right.
But every time you ask, they just shrug, nope, nothing here.
Uh-huh.
Then one day, the mayor holds a press conference and says, okay, folks, the unicorn, it's real. That's the kind of aha moment we're dealing with, but, with maybe universe-altering implications.
It's a good analogy. The scale is certainly immense.
Okay, so let's dive into the core of it. The official confirmation, this happened during a congressional hearing, November 13th, 2024. And the message seems to be that the government has finally, stepped into the spotlight.
Yes, admitted up is a phrase used in the sources. Admitted the reality of both UFOs and, significantly, EBOs.
And people are calling this the biggest revelation, capital R.
Well, what's striking is how definitive the admission sounds. It's not really couched in cautious language or uncertainties. The sources point to a firm acknowledgement.
Exactly. And we have direct quotes. People like Mr. Lou Elizondo, right, former DOD guy,
That's correct.
stating, unequivocally, the official admission and confirmation of non-human intelligence and exob organisms, that's not just guessing anymore, that's documented testimony.
And the context here is really crucial. This admission comes after years, probably decades, of alleged denial, secrecy.
Right.
So the narrative isn't sudden discovery. It's more like a long-held truth finally being acknowledged.
Which brings us to this really unsettling point, this idea that the truth has been kept from us, from the public, for a very long time.
The sources definitely reflect that sentiment. The truth has been kept from us.
And that the secrecy has undermined public trust for years. I mean, you have to wonder what else is out there.
It raises profound questions, doesn't it, about the
Right.
relationship between government and citizens? Why the perceived need for such extensive concealment?
Well, we have testimony from people like Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet. He talks about UAP info being classified within these special access programs, SAPs.
Highly restricted.
Yeah, even from senior officials. And that goes back to at least 2015 in his experience, but maybe much further back.
These SAPs are meant for highly sensitive info, but the testimony suggests the classification around UAPs was exceptionally tight, limiting oversight.
And then Mr. Elizondo's account, that paints an even, more concerning picture. He alleges a multi-decade secretive arms race funded by, get this, taxpayer dollars, potentially misallocated, hidden from elected officials. Like finding out your neighbor built a secret Death Star in their backyard using your HOA fees.
That analogy.
Yeah.
But the concept, if true, of a secret long-term initiative funded without proper scrutiny, it raises serious questions about checks and balances.
We also have reporting from Mr. Schellenberger. He cites a UAP whistleblower claiming decades of managing UAP and non-human intelligence issues with zero congressional oversight.
None at all. If accurate, that's a significant breakdown in the system designed for accountability.
And we can't forget John Greenwald's work, 27 years of FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act.
Tireless work.
And his findings, they show a completely different story behind the scenes compared to the government always saying, nope, not interested in UFOs. 27 years, just peeling back those layers.
It highlights the persistence needed for transparency, doesn't it? And underscores that alleged gap between public statements and internal activities.
So what was hidden? The sources point to some really specific stuff, like actual satellite imagery of UAPs.
Not just grainy photos. Data from advanced systems. Satellite imagery gives you that unique perspective from space, potentially detailed info.
Then there are military intelligence databases, presumably full of encounters, data points,
Selected by various branches, likely.
and a wealth of video and image data. Infrared, FLIR, that's heat signatures, right?
Yes, detects heat.
Full motion video, still photos. This isn't just eyewitness stuff, it's sensor data. Hard evidence, potentially.
The variety of sensor data allegedly withheld suggests a pretty comprehensive effort to track these things, which emphasizes the significance they might have secretly attached to them.
And there's mention of this alleged program, Immaculate Constellation,
Intriguing name.
described as an unacknowledged SAP, a central hub, basically, for UAP observations, pulling data from low Earth orbit, the atmosphere, even under the sea, like a secret cosmic watch program.
A centralized hub like that implies coordination, resource allocation, which really contradicts the whole "we're not interested" narrative.
And then the bombshell, confirmation, according to these sources, of secret UAP crash retrieval programs.
Actively recovering and trying to reverse engineer.
Alien craft. I mean, that sounds like pure science fiction, but apparently it's a reality they've kept quiet. Can you imagine if they actually have pieces of non-Earth tech? It's like finding a working hoverboard in your attic while your neighbor swears they only own a rusty bike.
The existence of such programs, if confirmed, would be profound.
Huge implications for technology, physics, everything.
The sources even mention government compensation for employees allegedly injured by UAPs. Think about that. Taxpayer money caring for people harmed by something officially denied.
It's like your HOA example again.
Paying for damage from the non-existent unicorn. Exactly.
Claims of injury and compensation, if true, would be a major deviation from the official stance. It suggests a much deeper level of engagement.
And the Tic Tac incident, 2004, that famous Navy pilot encounter,
Well-documented, credible witnesses.
also cited as a case where more info should be public. Rear Admiral Gallaudet apparently believes there's no good reason to withhold it. That says a lot about the transparency issue.
Yes, the continued withholding of information on such a known case is particularly concerning for transparency advocates.
We also hear about frequent UAP sightings over sensitive military sites, nuclear sites included, going back decades.
That raises serious national security questions, obviously.
And this alleged blocking of recovered materials being transferred between, like, Lockheed Martin, Bigelow Aerospace, the CIA, it suggests internal struggles, doesn't it? Control issues.
It points to internal divisions, perhaps, and the highly compartmentalized nature of this information. Sightings over sensitive sites definitely underscore the national security angle.
So, okay, all this secrecy, why? Why hide it for so long? The sources offer a few, well, speculative reasons. One is protecting classified tech demos.
A common justification.
Though the analogy here is almost too easy, right? Like hiding your slightly dented flying saucer prototype so no one steals your groundbreaking cup holder technology. I mean, really? Could our own tech be that far behind?
It's a fair question.
Yeah.
While protecting advancements is standard practice, the alleged scale and duration here make you wonder if that's the whole story.
Another idea. It was just locked down in those SAPs, managed by intel agencies. Layers upon layers of classification, like a secret club where nobody knows what's happening in the main room.
Compartmentalization can definitely create information silos. It hinders understanding, oversight, even within the government itself.
And then, maybe deliberate disinformation campaigns to discredit whistleblowers.
It's a serious concern.
The analogy used is pretty cynical. If you can't explain the glowing orb, just call the person who saw it unreliable. Works every time.
Using disinformation to manage perception and discredit dissent. It's a documented strategy, unfortunately. Its potential use here is troubling for those wanting truth.
Avoiding revealing vulnerabilities seems likely too, right? Admitting unknown things fly freely in our airspace, maybe watch sensitive sites? That's not great for confidence.
Acknowledging such vulnerabilities could definitely be seen as a national security risk, undermining public faith, maybe emboldening adversaries.
Or sometimes, maybe it's simpler, just a lack of answers. If they genuinely couldn't explain it, maybe suppression seemed easier than admitting ignorance.
When faced with the truly unknown, things defying conventional understanding, suppression can be a bureaucratic reflex to maintain control, avoid panic.
The Cold War gets mentioned historically, maybe less relevant now, but the inertia, the sheer momentum of decades of secrecy protocols, that's hard to start.
Institutional momentum is powerful. It creates resistance to transparency, even if the original reasons aren't fully valid anymore. It's like turning that supertanker, as you said.
And just plain old institutional resistance, maybe. Reluctance to admit past denials were wrong. It's human nature sometimes to double down.
Admitting past errors is hard for any large organization, especially with high-profile denials. Institutional pride, fear of undermining trust, significant obstacles.
Okay, now, let's get to the really intriguing part. The EBOs themselves. These exobiological organisms, often looking like the classic gray aliens.
The official confirmation that exoorganisms are real,
Huh.
that is monumental. It fundamentally shifts our understanding of life beyond Earth.
And get this, their genetic makeup. Reportedly DNA-based, which is surprisingly compatible with human cellular machinery.
That is surprising.
The analogy that comes to mind is, turns out the genetic code is less alien invasion and more distant cousin with surprisingly similar IKEA furniture assembly instructions. Who knew?
That shared basis, DNA, is unexpected. You might assume life from elsewhere would have a radically different biochemistry. It raises huge questions: shared origin, convergent evolution.
But it gets weirder. Their genome is described as minimalist, highly condensed, essentially perfect for making a hybrid human with special capabilities. That's a direct quote from the source material summary.
Mentalist, yes.
Yeah.
And fewer protein-coding genes than us, apparently.
Yeah.
It's just maybe a highly efficient system. It's just different.
The hybrid capability implication is, well, that's thought-provoking and raises other questions we won't get into today.
Indeed. Ethical considerations abound there.
Morphologically, though, they apparently look a lot like the classic grays from folklore. About 160 centimeters tall. What's that, 5'3"?
Roughly, yes.
2 arms, 2 legs, head, big eyes. It's almost like science fiction just became fact.
The convergence between folklore and this official description is noteworthy. It does lend some credibility, perhaps, to decades of anecdotal accounts.
But the gray skin, not actually skin, it's a biosynthetic film for environmental protection, apparently. Not great with extreme temps, but good against liquids, like built-in, slightly delicate weatherproofing.
A biosynthetic film suggests advanced biological engineering, a barrier against stressors, maybe in their home environment or, during travel.
And those huge eyes, covered by another semi-transparent biosynthetic film. Protection, light filtering.
Okay.
But underneath, a much larger traditional eye, like 3 times the size of ours. No eyelids. Suggests amazing night vision. Built-in night vision goggles, basically.
The dual-layer structure is sophisticated, adapted for diverse lighting, potentially. The large, uncovered eye underneath points to low-light specialization.
And interestingly, the endoskeleton. Similar to ours in composition, there's even a jawbone, a mandible.
But vestigial musculature.
Right. No teeth, no tongue in the mouth. So familiar skeleton broadly, but significant head and mouth differences.
Similarities are intriguing. Lack of teeth, developed jaw, suggests a different way of taking in nutrients, perhaps.
So yeah, they match the gray alien image generally, but specific biological details are emerging. This confirmation isn't just yes-no, it comes with some initial fascinating biodetails.
Information that, however preliminary, provides a foundation for actual scientific inquiry, moving beyond just stories.
So there you have it. The government has officially said yes to that age-old question. UFOs and those beings we only whispered about, acknowledged as real, it's just a seismic shift in our understanding of everything.
It absolutely opens up a vast new landscape. So many questions. What does this mean for science, technology, our place in the cosmos? This is really just the beginning of a much, much larger conversation.
Yeah, think about it. A truth allegedly kept hidden for decades is now out. What other secrets are out there? What does this mean for our future?
And that raises an important question for you, the listener. Now that this fundamental truth is acknowledged, what do you want to know next? What parts of this revelation are most compelling or maybe concerning to you?
This deep dive, we've barely scratched the surface. We really encourage you, explore the sources, ask your own questions, join the ongoing search for understanding. The universe just got a whole lot bigger, didn't it? And the story is clearly far from over.
Thanks for tuning in to the Despicable Maine Deep Dive. Remember, living in Despicable Maine is theft of your life. Every day you are there is another day stolen from your life.